without further ado, this is Bryson Jones, the high-def cowboy.
The first big client that I actually worked with on this stuff was Celebrity Rehab. And just to give you an idea of how that works, we take in about 2,000 hours in 21 days of shooting. They digitize that in about 4 days. That gets proxied. There's a team of up to 20 loggers at a time, logging 16 hours a day, logging all that footage and transcribing it, and then we share that out to producers. The crazy thing is that their proxy lives on a SATA drive inside a Mac Pro server. There's not some huge enterprise operation doing this. It's really light on the machine. And so that's a neat thing, that a small shop can get into this and use it. They got into it because they couldn't really afford at the time the competitor. And what they ended up doing was building this little rig that now they own. The interesting thing about it is now 4 seasons in, every show they've ever done is available in proxy. So when you say, oh, I want to go back 3 seasons and look at so-and-so doing this, it's all there on the server. The guy just gets an account for that show, logs in, and everything he ever did is on the server. I'd like to move on, actually, in that. Let me see where we're on here. I'm going to jump on into a little bit and show you some stuff that like the reality guys do, actually. And the way the server works is that we can either browse a database of these catalogs we've created. And the way that the data structure is CatDV, I'm not going to go too deep into this because it'll sort of break your brain, but CatDV works with a catalog. And you say, how big is it? Well, it can be 2 clips, it can be 1 clip, it can be 1,000, it can be 10,000. It's really a matter of how much you want to open because we have all these thumbnails and all this metadata in there. So we try to keep it down to not so many clips. Usually I try to keep it down under 1,000 myself. I've seen catalogs with 4,000 clips. The interesting thing about that is with the standalone client, you can search within one catalog. You can come up into the top window and search within that single catalog. The power of the server is every catalog that gets published into your server, all that data becomes searchable so that every clip across the whole database is searchable. So while we start with this idea of a catalog, which in most shops is kind of like a tape or a hard drive or some way we gather clips, what happens is we're able to virtualize that. And what it really gets to is the idea that you could have a project catalog. Let's say, I love to use graphics for example, because graphics guys are like, this is the classic for me. No. My video is in the folder that says Fluffy. It's called Fluffy. We're like, well, it really ought to be called Project A Deliverables. No, I like Fluffy. And what's cool about CatDV is they can have Fluffy. They can have a folder called Fluffy. But we have it in the catalog, and we see it that it's gathered as a project. So that other people who have a more sensible way of thinking of this can say, well, I need to see Project A deliverables. And they open that. And what's neat about it is we don't impose that structure. Because what I've really, really learned is that you're not really going, people have a way they like to work. And we can do a little bit to impose structure. But really, if you're a post soup, you're really just wrangling the cats. You're just kind of trying to keep it all together and figure it out, and then eventually we'll clean it up later. And that happens a lot. So the benefit of being able to put things in and work with them, pretty powerful. This media is all, I just realized this media is all offline. I'm working off of their server, an old copy from their server. So I'm going to pull up the trailers here. So I'm opening a catalog off of the server. And you can see here that we have this stuff set. In the reality shows, so you can just browse to these and take a look at them, or we can go over here and perform a query. Something that's interesting about CatDV that I really like is it's easily customizable, and you don't have to have a college degree or go to school for 5 days to do it. For instance, this is the query, and you go, wow, man, that's a lot of stuff. I'm just going to customize that. So I can jump in here really quickly, and I can say, cool, let's go through and get rid of everything. Let's say everything to there. Let's get back here. Excuse me. I hit the wrong key there. Let's leave it right there and then drop it down here, and I'm going to move on, get rid of all those. And now I'm only going to have these 4 things to search. So now it's a little more manageable to look at. So let's take a look right now. I'm going to look in here, for instance, at some reality stuff. I know that Amber Smith is in some clips. So here we go. Some Celebrity Rehab footage. We pop in here and take a look at it. And if we look over here in this guy, you go, well, that's cool. You got 4 clips that have Amber in them. In these have been transcribed and logged. So if we look over here in the HTML summary, we'll see this long transcription, and I'll see that Amber, right there, all highlighted through it. I can go through each shot and see. There it is, Amber Smith. So for productions where you have a lot of logs and tagging, things like that, it's a pretty powerful way to work because you can actually go in here and find this stuff and auto-locate. Another thing that we can do is we have multiple marker types. So we can go through here, for instance, and set this up as a certain type of marker. Say, okay, go through here. I'm setting markers. I'm going to do a different kind of marker. Oh, that's a range marker, excuse me. So that I need an in and an out. I can set that as a range. The names are customizable. The colors are customizable. And then I can also set up a chapter marker right here if I want to. That's a DVD chapter, and I can say that's chapter 1. And then when I come over here in this interface, I can see those markers all unlined out. And I'm auto-locating to them in the video. Again, that metadata is searchable. So I can mark clips in this view here, or since this is a reality show, I can actually go into a thing that we call the verbatim logger. And this is a logging interface for transcriptions and marking. And so I can go in here if I want, and actually this is a full-fledged logger. I can start this playing, and I can have, if you notice, I've set up some auto type here, so I can hit the 0 key and it types Bryson. I can hit the 1 and it says Anna. I can hit the 2 and it says Hunter. So I can go down here and say there and go, that's Hunter. And go down and say, okay, cool, there, that's Anna. Go through there and run through and quickly log this stuff. Just a neat little thing. I also have a software to run this from a foot pedal. It's pretty slick if you have to do a lot of logging and transcription. And then we can either save that as text, or we can apply those as markers, which then become searchable. And you see I have Hannah and Hunter markers all through this. We've tagged, we make proxy, so we share out. People can work on proxy. We get to work on high res. We can locate media through the place. A lot of things. That's what we were saying. It gets pretty deep. So getting to the end of the client part of this thing, and I'm going to show you right here real quickly. Let's get through here, and let's actually let's get out of this one completely and show you another little feature that's pretty slick for people who receive a lot of kinds of footage. Let's see if we have something here that you guys recognize. Let's see here. Our old friend, the contents folder. Here we go. And so, you know, the nightmare of dealing with P2 and XDCAM and a lot of formats like this. We're using an $80 plugin from a company called Calibrated to actually read the MXF media file. So what we can do right here is we can drag this contents folder in, and I'm not transcoding. I'm not changing or moving my media at all. But I'm basically analyzing this and turning it into meta clips. And so now that's P2. I can mark it up, mark ins and outs, and I can take it straight into Final Cut Pro. And now I'm editing and working with P2 footage right there. Pretty slick. So the idea is that we can put together, if you look over here into this, the meta clips. So that clip down at the bottom is 004 we're looking at. You can see it's made up of video file, 2 audio files, a still, and an XML that carries the metadata. And we virtualize that into what's called a meta clip, so it appears to us as a playable clip. So we can do this with XDCAM. We can do this with P2. So if you work at a P2 house and you don't get to decide Avid or Final Cut Pro or Adobe, you don't have to. You can look at it. You can choose to bring it in or not. We don't have to transcode to work with media, and that's a really powerful thing. Another thing you can do is if you don't even want to edit it, you're just shooting it and you just want to have somebody look at it, you can bring it in, make a proxy, and then archive the P2 away and not have to mess with it, especially for shops that are shooting a lot of stuff. It's, you know, like we talk about stock photo and other things like that. Every now and then there's some stuff that you may not actually want to have on the SAN at high res. You just need to look at it and see what it was while you did it.
And the metaclip is the proxy?
The metaclip is actually not the proxy. The metaclip is the viewable gathered clip. It takes the 2 audios and the video, and up to or 4 audios and video, right, and makes a virtual clip. Then we can create proxy from that, right? So we can do that without a transcode of the original media. So instead of like Final Cut, where we're going to make that into ProRes, right, and then start down the road with editorial, we can just create a low-res proxy, like I said, for that. The other piece of that, we were talking about archiving. Kind of keeps going. I always feel like Billy Mays, like, now how much would you pay? Now, but wait, there's more. It slices, it dices. We're going to throw in here. Let's see here. I'm going to go over here and grab. It does actually. It literally does splice. Nice. So I'm going to grab these little guys here. All right. So we're in here. I'm going to show you one other thing. The biggest nightmare that's coming down the pipe for all of us. I'm just I've been very lucky to be on the cutting edge of a lot of post things. And I'll just tell you that I've seen waves come. And the big wave that's coming the really big wave that's coming is firewire drives are going to get old and start to fail. That's going to be crazy. That's like data-mageddon. And it's coming. It is. And people are like, oh, no, but they work. Don't they just work? And as I always say, Curtis and I always laugh, it's like the Camaro on blocks in my yard. If I don't start it every 6 months, it's not going to run. And the same idea with drives. So we're having to come up with some ideas about long-term archiving because everyone's thrown away tape. What are we going to do now? And, it used to be so simple. So one of the big things we've started to deal with now is that we're going to put it away maybe on these digital data tapes like LTO or whatever you choose. The big idea is that when you do that, you can no longer just mount the drive and look at it really quickly like we do with a firewire drive. And so it's sort of a bizarre situation. In CatDV, you can scan that archive you're about to send, and then you can actually tag what archive it went to. And then if you want to, keep the proxy online. So you can always go back and say, when we shot that guy, was his beard really that long? And you're like, yeah, let's go look. Oh, yeah, he was. It's a crazy long beard. We got to use that shot, and that's the idea. So basically, I don't know where I got that reference. But anyway, the idea is that behind this, we have some way, a trail of crumbs back to our data. It's going to get really silly. It's already really silly. I mean, I walk into shops all the time. We walk past, and there's a shelf full of drives. And it's like, what's on them? And it's everybody's sitting with that. It's like, what's on that? And I was talking to a guy the other day, man, and he's like, hey, we'll just mount all these and look on it. And it's like, wow, what a nightmare. Like, mount it once, scan it, and then search the database. Where is that file? That's the big deal. Oh, it's on drive 23, mount drive 23. That's kind of where you pay for these things. That's the deal. I get my life back. I get those hours that I spent doing it. I get my assistant time back. I get my intern time back. I get producers out of the edit bay. I preserve my editorial time for editorial. So all these repetitive tasks that we have to use an edit bay for now, we're trying to get those out. And for me, a big deal is that because I've seen that over and over in shops. I've seen the money wasted. And we've never had a way to deal with it. It's like watching that Adobe thing. You couldn't rotoscope like that a few years ago. You just had to have a guy sit there and do it. And this is the idea now. We have automations. We can take advantage of them now. And they're actually here and working. It's not like this. We're not in the someday stuff.